up, guys? Welcome to KP Community, episode 3, 4, 3? 3. It's episode 3.
3 with the pilot, so there's 4, but no one counts the pilot because it really doesn't matter.
So episode 3. So this week we are on, last week I think I screwed up. I said episode 3. We're actually on episode 3 this week. Yeah. Anyways, moving forward. We're on episode 3 of KP Community. Tonight we're going to be going over average.
Yep.
Like we promised last week, we'd have a positive average.
Above average
this week. And then we would have also from the KOOP. Garrett has got a strength conditioning post from us from the KOOP this week. A lot of stuff being popped on the KOOP right now, so we got a lot to talk about there. Big thing tonight's heavy strength conditioning discussion.
Yep.
I mean, really heavy strength conditioning discussion. And so we're going to go through a lot of discussion around how to get better in the weight room.
Yep.
And then beyond that, we're going to be going to our AMA as always. So guys, if you're watching, make sure you throw your comments in the chat. We got a couple of comments from guys on support this week. Awesome. We'll be answering those. A lot of questions, a lot of stuff coming at us this week from our guys. So appreciate all of you guys out there. Couple new things coming to community in the next couple of weeks. Really excited to be dropping. And as off season gets prepped up here, we've got TrackMan coming in. Excited about that. There'll be some new stuff up on
throwing change-ups every day.
Garrett's gonna be throwing change-ups, trying to blow out his UCL every day, which we hope he doesn't. But yeah, that's what you get when you don't build up. And then what else? Pro guys coming back, season ending. Just a whole bunch of stuff going on right now. So we'll cover it all in our discussion tonight. But let's start it up. Garrett, what do we got on average for our posts this week from social media?
Sweet. Yeah. So the post that I found was this guy's doing a back extension, like on the 45-degree back extension thing that comes up to like here, put your hips and you're
okay. So
coming
like,
back over.
Like the glute ham.
Yeah, the glute ham. It's the same thing, but it's at a 45-degree angle.
Yeah,
so that's why it's called that way. So he's doing a normal exercise there, but what he's doing is he's adding a foam block, like little black ones that we have in facility.
Yoga block.
Yeah, like a foam yoga block. Yeah, that's what it's called. And he's squeezing that right above the knees. He's squeezing his adductors and squeezing the foam block while his hips are going through flexion and extension. Last week, we talked about how constraints in the weight room with bands can be really bad if they're not used properly. This is the complete opposite. So when we look at this exercise, this constraint adds to this exercise. It gives it a little bit more extra efficiency to that exercise, because what happens when you squeeze the block, you're activating your adductors to help stabilize the pelvis through hip flexion and extension. This is the same thing that the adductors are going to do during the squat or the deadlift. So what this exercise is doing is helps him prepare those adductors to do what their job is during the heavier movements without having to do the heavier movements. Just because it's a lighter exercise, you can do this 2 or 3 times a week with high volume work and train the adductors in the same way they're going to be able to work during a heavier lift.
So explaining this in terms of like, if we were to talk about like obviously exercise progression, something you just mentioned. Yes. If I'm a younger athlete versus an older athlete, like it's important for me to have kind of a prerequisite in terms of my movement or my ability to execute certain movements before we focus on maybe adding something like this. But does that block itself, is it a feel thing, or is it just like maximizing the ability to target a certain area? Like, what's the purpose of that block, and why does it make this post so unique?
Yeah. So first part of your question, there's going to be some prerequisites to this movement because it's basically a dynamic plank. We're keeping that rib cage down, pelvis stacked position, stuff we're going to talk about in a minute too. But we're keeping that position while going through hip flexion and extension. So if you can't do a plank, this would be a progression to that plank. And then obviously adding the second part of your question, adding the block is technically both feels and efficient, or it's both a feel thing and it works the same way, because you're going to feel our adductors on fire, because what they're doing is they're dynamically moving, but they're also stabilizing the pelvis to allow the glutes and the hamstrings to do their job in hip extension. Same thing they're going to do there. Yeah. And that's why using a block is this post was so above average, because it was just like, this is understanding anatomy and understanding what we're trying to get out of the exercise to then help other exercises that we're ultimately trying to get to.
Yep. Got it. Perfect. So above average post, obviously.
Yep.
Not an average post. So awesome. Who was it from? And give me a little rundown on where it came from. Who's this person?
Yeah. So this is James Smith, or Smitty Diesel. He's like a CEO of Diesel SC. He's up in New Jersey. He's big name guy. He's just understanding where anatomy comes from is one of his big things.
So he's a gym in New Jersey.
He's a coach. Yeah, he's a trainer in Jersey, and just understanding the intricacies of movement and using constraints in a really good way.
Awesome. Love it. Love it. Excellent. Well, today my post comes from a good friend of ours, Lennon Richards. And so this week I saw a good post, and the one that really jumped out to me this week was Lennon and I, we've been talking about on Connect the application of certain movement qualities, certain approaches to our training. And one of the things that really jumped out, he talked about how he's been using an overhead camera, something so simple, just a different angle of looking at things, to do a pivot pick and to do some more very constrained drill with arm path. So he's looking at horizontal abduction, he's looking at timing and positioning of the hand, he's looking at trunk rotation, all these things in the components. And so he talks about a little bit on Twitter this week, and I think he's pretty big on posts on Instagram as well. But they're doing a great job with the overhead camera, something that we played with in the past as well, and that I love. I think it's been, it really makes you reconsider why the arm moves the way it does and truly what influences the arm the most. So from Lennon, Lennon, I know you're watching. Awesome. Appreciate you, coming in and dropping some quality content on social media. Lennon and BDG up there in Canada do a great job. And also a little teaser, might be having Mike Sohn, the Pro Play group with Lennon onto Community here in the near future as part of our new episode. So excited about that as well. So awesome. Lennon's post, way above average. Yeah. She's super smart, and just the analysis of that movement quality is what made that post so quality. So
I like how simple, like, that's innovative. That's an innovative way to reinvent like a pivot pick. And sometimes people don't look at like innovation as just a camera angle, but it's just that simplicity can be that innovation that helps a guy out. And ultimately that's what we're trying to do from a training standpoint, is just get a guy better. And if it's an overhead camera, that's it. Cool.
As simple as that. Love it. So that is average this week. Hey, pound it for above average posts this week, not just bashing on people. We will probably get back to maybe bashing a few posts next week. Yep. So those are way more entertaining. But anyways, moving on to our next segment. We are going to go from the KOOP, and Garrett this week dropping an exercise video in lifting. We've got so much coming to the KOOP in the near future here. We've got a book club with Reeves. That is like, it's hard. I laugh every time it's a book club. Reeves has got some really, really good reading material. I've got a few that I'm going to throw in there. Garrett's got a few he's going to throw in there.
Textbooks.
Matt, I'm sure, has a couple that he wants to put on the list. We're going to throw some of our favorite reads. I don't know, maybe we'll do a monthly and what we're kind of digging into.
Monthly book club.
I'm not much of a reader. I like hop on Audible and I listen to my books a lot. So when you guys see me on social media and I'm scrolling a list of books like 12 deep, realize I'm not reading. I got a 1.5 speed up on the Audible.
Everything's 1.5. Nothing is real speed.
So anyways, for all you guys live from KOOP this week, we're gonna run with Garrett. We got a lateral I don't know how to say it.
The exercise that was put up, front foot elevated split squat contralateral. So, or for us, is what guys at the facility call it. I abbreviate everything. I try to, if I can abbreviate a word, I'm abbreviating it. So front foot elevated split squat, split squat and lunge are the same thing. So if those are interchangeable, a lot of people will argue if they're not, but they're the exact same thing. So with the front foot elevated, obviously the front foot is going to be slightly elevated, not so high where you're like a step up, but probably like 4 to 6 inches higher. And cues for this exercise is really going to be stacking that rib cage and pelvis together. The back knee is going to be driving into internal rotation, so turning that knee inward. So if from a foot standpoint, the foot's going to be turned in as well. So it's just driving that hip into internal rotation of that back leg, and then going while we're going down through that split squat, driving that front knee into internal rotation as well. So we're getting driving internal rotation on both sides. Then coming through, being able to drive back through the heel and get a fully extended front leg is going to be the last cue there, and being able to keep all that into segments.
So if I'm looking at this, right, we have a split. So this is if I want to look at split squat in general, these cues are universal, correct? To all split squats.
So the progression of a lunge or a split squat would be stationary lunge, where both feet are on the flat ground, front foot elevated, where the weight's going to be a little bit more on the front leg, and then or on the back leg, my bad. We're going to be a little bit on the back leg because the front foot is elevated. It's going to shift your back. And then lastly, it's going to be a rear foot elevated split squat, rear fest, or however you want to say that one. And that's going to be more front leg because obviously the back leg is off the ground. Yeah. And anytime in any exercise, if we're taking our back leg and we're putting it into extension or putting it backwards, it's going to be driving into internal rotation because majority of athletes lack the extension and internal rotation of their hips. So if we can get more exposure to that extension, internal rotation in split squats, we can load them really heavy because we can handle a lot of weight. But if we can get more exposure through other exercises as well, and we'll have other exercises on KOOP as well, and that's you're gonna see rib cage down, pelvis tucked, and driving internal rotation on the back hip almost 50% of the time because we're trying to drive internal rotation.
So I love this thought process. Like, and growing up as an athlete, like I still hear my coach's voice in the back of my head when I'm lifting, right? Or when I'm doing stuff. Being a non-athlete today, strictly a weekend warrior, trying to overdo myself pretty much every weekend. But I hear these cues, right? I hear this thought process, like scaps and my pelvis and rib cage and lead legs, and I hear all these things in my head. And so as an athlete, I think one of our things is to build this library or this toolbox of these little cues, right? To take in what you're teaching them as a coach, bring all this stuff into one area, and then when you go and do any sort of split squat, like I'm picking up a log at whatever, like I'm on vacation, I'm picking up a log and I'm doing a split squat of some sort. Like I have these cues I put my body into to maximize my ability to do the exercise, and then also maximize my performance on the backside of it. So I laugh when I hear those voices in the back of my head. And it's like when we put these videos together, we're selecting certain exercises on KOOP, not because we really love this exercise. It's not any different than any other exercise. It's an exercise. Yeah. Like we're showing this one specifically because it's really easy for us to explain those universalized cues for that type of exercise. So if we're doing deadlifts or if we're doing whatever, same with throwing drills, like there are a lot of universal cues that we need to work on for arm path or for lead leg or for whatever that thing is. And in this case, what you're putting together and the quality of those cues, those are things that athletes need to take and digest and let them sit in the back of the mind, because at the end of the day, there's going to be a time where when we're doing that exercise, we've got to get accustomed to having those little voices in the back of our head that say, hey, rib cage down. Hey, rib cage down. Hey, make sure you're internally rotating that back. Like make sure you're putting that knee in the right spot. Get that knee. So there's so many of those cues. And that's what I love about our KOOP videos. We're designing them right now. Take those digestible pieces and start to really log them in the back. So anything to add to close out with from the KOOP today?
No, not really. More are going to be coming. It won't be our whole exercise library, but it's going to be pretty close.
When the app comes out, and it will come out,
you'll have every exercise.
It'll have a lot of exercises.
303 of them.
Yes, that is, as you can tell, Garrett's got them counted. So great. Well, let's roll on tonight. Moving forward, you guys check out KOOP. Make sure you guys go koop.KineticProBaseball.com. There's so much stuff. I updated this week the throwing library, so we have placeholder throwing videos in there for you, as you guys saw in your reports this week. There's new updates to your weekly reports. There's just a lot going into KOOP. And like I said, even a book club from Reeves. We've got Matt dropping stuff on youth. We've got just so much going in there right now. Make sure you guys are tuning in there. Find a post, check it out, read through it. I might be doing some one-on-ones with the camera, doing a little philosophy discussion around our climb the mountain and around our step forward, and even some OG stuff like lion mentality, which is, from way back, ancient time KP. And there's some really good reasoning behind these terms and these phrases and where it all comes from. It's not just a hashtag that we throw up on Instagram. It really means something. And there's a reason why we chose those mantras to kind of work through our business. So that is all going to be up on the KOOP. And Garrett, appreciate you diving into that tonight. Let's jump into the AMA. This week to start up, I have Jonathan Simpson. I'll go ahead and say the name out loud tonight. Jonathan sent me a good question this week, and Jonathan's been one of our longtime athletes, so good feel for some stuff. But one of the questions he asked here is, he says, so here's a question that a teammate and I are debating about. What are the advantages and disadvantages throwing a football? Also, should a football be used every day, every other day, or should it only be used for severe arm path issues? Thanks, Jonathan. Great question. And have you read Nolan Ryan's Pitcher's Bible?
No, I know who Nolan Ryan is. He's my favorite pitcher of all time, but I have not read that book.
Dude, I feel like that's like a mandatory read. Like, you have to check that one out. So that's gonna go on our book club for sure. Nolan Ryan Pitcher's Bible.
It can go under the pitching one.
Sounds great. So Nolan Ryan's Pitcher's Bible. If you guys don't know who Nolan Ryan is, which maybe some of you don't, go Google him. He's just an important pitcher to know about, probably the best pitcher of all time. But go check out Nolan Ryan. Those of you who've not read the book, the gist of it is, it talks about his training day. It really does lay out his nutrition, his training regimen. I don't not telling you guys to follow his strategies. Like that's one of the biggest today in baseball. Still, I hear people say, well, Nolan Ryan did this. I go, well,
he was ahead of his time back then, but we're 30 years
way past his prime. Okay. We're way past it. So my point is that there was a lot of things that he and Tom House did a long time ago that were great back. Cutting edge back in that time. He was one of he was really the only pitcher that I can think of at that era that was heavy in lifting weights. He was way ahead of his time in terms of lifting weights. But long story short, the guy threw crazy hard and super late in his career. One of the things that a lot of coaches, though, attribute all of that to is throwing a football. And I laugh. So, Jonathan, to answer your question tonight, where does the the football thing come from is the first question I think we have to ask. And honestly, I'll tell you, it comes from Nolan Ryan. From my understanding, my research, my knowledge of history, I would tell you that throwing a football, that process came from Nolan Ryan. I saw him having success with it, doing it. And that's where it ended up ultimately coming from. But what is throwing a football? Why is that relevant? Is there something unique about that? I laugh, it's how much does a football weigh? It's roughly 1 pound. Okay. Well, how much does a 1 pound plyo care ball weigh? It's roughly 1 pound. How much does a baseball weigh? 5 ounces. How much does a tennis ball weigh? 2 to 3 ounces. Well, wait a minute. Aren't all these weighted balls? Don't all these sustain a weight? What makes 5 ounces so unique that 1 pound is different than 5 ounces? Well, it's heavier. Oh, thank you. I'm aware of that. I figured that part out. But let's answer the question here. Is throwing a football better than throwing a 1 pound plyo care ball? No, not really. No, I would tell you that there's got to be a purpose. And so if you're throwing a football to work on something specific and you feel it's addressing that issue, you're using that then as a constraint. You're using that then as a way to produce a certain position or induce a certain, cognitive awareness of what we're trying to accomplish. So if the football helps with that, great. But in most cases, the football is actually a different arm slot, or the football's thrown differently. It was either taught differently, or just guys don't know. They have an awareness of how to make it spiral. So it's just a different throw than a baseball. So at the end of the day, what's more specific to our actual task? Well, probably throwing a 1 pound plyo care ball. So if I was to tell you to do something and get volume with something, it's not throwing a football. It's really throwing a 1 pound plyo care ball or 2 pound plyo care ball. That's the idea. what value does throwing a football have? Well, it's not much different value if you have the same awareness and you can place the same constraints upon throwing a 1 pound plyo care ball or a 2 pound plyo care ball in certain cases. Do you throw a 2 pound plyo care ball, 120 feet? No. But could you throw a football that far? Well, that's 1 pound versus 2 pound. Should you throw a 1 pound plyo care ball 120 feet? Well, I would argue that no, you shouldn't. But at the same time, how far do those plyo care balls actually travel when we throw them past? If we took the wall away and we just had you throw it at an angle, like how far do those actually go with the effort that you're throwing them? I don't know, but we don't have to find out. My point is we already do a lot of this in terms of our plyo care work into the wall. Jonathan, to answer your question, no, I don't think throwing a football is a necessity every day. I don't think throwing a football is a necessity at all. Like I don't think it's. But if we want to use it, it's a good modality. It's a weighted ball. One of the unique metrics that I saw on Twitter a while back, and this is an interesting study for. I'll have to find it, maybe throw it up on KOOP or something. But there was a measurement of I think 150 baseballs or some crazy number of baseballs, Major League Baseballs, game used Major League Baseballs, and those balls ranged from 4 ounces to 6 ounces. Very, very rarely were those exactly 5 ounces. And so you laugh, you watch velocity on TV and you go, oh, that guy threw the ball 101 miles an hour. Well, did he just have a 3 ounce ball?
No.
Did he just throw a 4 ounce ball? Did he throw a 6 ounce ball at, 93? Sometimes we see velocity fluctuations. And again, going after internet sensations in terms of social media posts, oftentimes people want to attribute that kind of stuff to mechanics. Well, there's so many more variables to velocity, and one of them being even just ball weight. So without going off a tangent on that, be aware when we're throwing, a football, a baseball, a plyo care ball, whatever we're throwing, just make sure you have a purpose with it. A really good story of that. We had an MLB guy in the offseason last year. He was spending so much time with long toss the previous year. So much time with long toss. He threw from a lower slot, so much time with long toss, and command was one of the main focuses. And so I told him, I said, listen, why don't we cut back on throwing so much long toss? Why don't we go into being more specific to our task? Let's focus on command. Let's focus on throwing the ball to a target in the zone. And so we started building him up, and he built up the intensity off a slope to a pad. And we probably got about 50% more volume in the year or in the off season to a pad, more specifically kind of honing in that proprioception and understanding, having that awareness of what he's trying to accomplish with the baseball. And that paid off. So it's the same thing, Jonathan, when you talk about throwing a football, the question is, what are we trying to accomplish here? What's the task? So, that's what it comes down to. And I would tell you, just leverage your strategies within your training program accordingly. So, that's it for that one. We got a question up on the chat box tonight. It is talking about recovery. The question is, how should I go about recovery after my outing? So basically talking about recovery, understanding how to recover properly or most efficiently after an outing. Garrett, you want to go ahead and jump on that one?
Yeah. So it basically comes down to, I think, having a proper program from a lifting standpoint, from a throwing standpoint, to keep you in ranges that are easy to recover from. So if you're not going outside your workload, you're not doing things in the weight room that are going to fatigue you anymore, you're going to be ready for the game. Your body's going to be able to adapt to that stress for that game or that outing to recover from. That would be the first one. So a proper program is probably the easiest way to do it. Easy, but hard in the same way. Second would probably be the quickest way would be the second you're out of that outing, if you can, get some noise canceling headphones on and an eye mask or sleep mask.
Eye mask.
Eye mask, sleep mask.
Yeah.
A mask for your eyes. So getting those and being able to. So when we're on the mound, we're in a sympathetic state where we have the crowd, we have the adrenaline, we have all this stuff that is inducing stress. The second we're down and done with that outing, to help get us into a parasympathetic state where we're relaxed and our body can start recovering. If we can't have noise canceling headphones and the mask is going to help us be able to get into that parasympathetic state quicker, which is going to help recovery happen quicker. If you can do that, that's an easy like thing you have like in your bag. You can always just put on right after your outing. From a recovery from a next standpoint, probably would be nutrition and sleep.
Yep.
Nutrition and sleep are going to be everyday things.
The sleep mask with sleep.
Sleep with mask for sleep. So if you have the sleep mask for sleeping, you already have that. So you might as well bring that to the field and use that right afterwards, and then try to get a nap in right after that.
So we're talking about sleep mask, sleep, together, nutrition added to that as well. There's a bunch of different techniques and strategies. Yes, exactly.
So getting enough sleep, taking accountability for your sleep, and understanding how to actually induce better sleep is going to be the main priority. And then nutrition as well, getting enough, especially enough protein in. And if I've had any calls with you guys or I've talked to any of you guys ever, you guys know protein is probably the biggest thing that you guys take away from a nutritional talk is getting enough protein in. If we can get the more protein we have, the better we're able to recover from high stress intensity workouts, which is basically an outing. It's a huge stressful thing that we go through. So the more protein we have, the more calories we have, is going to allow us to recover better. Then if we've checked off all those, we can finally get into recovery modalities. Is probably what he's asking the most about.
Yep.
Is sure ice baths, red light therapy, sauna, Normatec boots, Theragun, all this stuff for in-season use. If it lets you perform the best, do it 100%, because the goal of in season is to perform at your very, very best. Yep. If you have to use those to accelerate the recovery process, by all means do it. Different story in the off season. And we can always talk about that in the later time. But if you have to get in the sauna, you want an ice bath, 100% go for it. It's in season. Use those modalities as much as you can, but that's after you've checked off proper programming, sleep, nutrition. Then we can finally get to those things. Majority of the time, if you have those three checked in and dialed in, you're probably not going to want to even do that, because you probably think it's just going to be like, oh, I'm just going to be sitting in a tub, because you're going to feel good. You're going to be recovered. Your body's going to be able to adapt on its own, which is what we're ultimately trying to do, is get our body so built up where we can handle the high stress from a throwing standpoint, high stress from a lifting standpoint, that we don't need all this extra stuff. Our bodies are good enough to heal themselves and recover themselves, where we don't need all this extra stuff.
Well, I want to say something on that too. So, at the end of the day, I think, we have all this stuff. So like we said, we have number one, first and foremost, proper programming. Yep. Arguably it's, programming management or work with management, but programming management. Okay. Number two, we're talking about nutrition, sleep, those main structures, right? We have stress management as well. You can throw in there, which how well do you handle your day-to-day? Are you stressing yourself out in school because you're studying and not getting great grades and you're panicked and there's a lot of other stuff going on, also kills you. So, then we have all these other pieces below, like the modalities, like red light therapy and all this stuff. And oftentimes we've I watch guys, because Instagram, right, or Twitter, guys flip this chart. They put red light therapy, they put, all these other pieces up at the top as like, man, I feel terrible, so let me go hop on a Theragun. And they spend an hour with a Theragun. You're like, well, wait a minute, like,
makes you feel good, but it's not gonna last.
Yeah, makes you feel like you're doing something. By the end of the day, you're not. You got an underlying problem here. The problem is that your program sucks, or that you can't stay consistent to it.
Yeah.
Right. The problem is that you don't sleep well. The problem is that you have no concept of nutrition. And so the one thing, if I could drive home one message on this, it's you've got to be consistent. You have to look at the objective. And I know. So here's the thing. We talk about everybody wants to grind. Everybody wants to, especially in the off season. Everybody wants to grind. Oh, I'm going to go in. I'm going to push so hard this off season. I want a couple of videos of me throwing max effort. Everybody sees the video. Everybody sees that moment where they're just running, gunning 105, and they think that's it. That's what I'm doing. They don't realize what it takes to build up to do that. Number one. Number two, they don't realize that moment is not what makes you better. You want to know what makes you better? It's the mundane stuff, it's the physical. Putting the effort in on the physical. That's half of it. But then how about at nighttime? Do you have a reminder on your phone that goes off that says, hey, Make sure you log all your food from MyFitnessPal. That's not sexy. Nobody cares about that. You can't make an Instagram post on that. Nobody cares. But that's the stuff that actually matters. So if you want, like, if we're a team, right? If we're a team, you're talking to Garrett, you're talking to me, you guys are coming online, email and support. You guys want to know how to maximize your potential, how to get where you want to go. Do more, but do more in the space that I'm tracking and understanding how to strategically make myself better. Yeah. I need to know if I'm worried about recovery, I don't feel good or whatever. I need to know, am I measuring that thing that I might be lacking? If you are not, you better figure out how to do it. You have MyFitnessPal, you have your workload strap, you have all of your stuff that allows you to look in and see the objective, and you have a team behind you. If you're part of this process, you are part of our memberships, you are part of a team, and you need to lean on Garrett, lean on me, lean on our team, ask great questions. Guys, I've hit your workload number every day. I have hit your workload number every day. I have had optimal sleep for an entire month. Yeah. I have crushed my nutrition. I'm hitting every protein metric, every calorie, everything that you've given me. I'm hitting all of it. Okay, great. Awesome. Okay, now let's talk about red light therapy. Now let's talk about ice baths. Now let's talk about those pieces, right? Yeah. But if I just jump to that because it's sexy,
it's easy. It's a lot. That's why I think a lot of guys draw to that. And it's a very, like, it's easy to just sit and it makes you feel good. There's science behind it that makes you feel good.
It makes you feel like you're working hard.
And it's not about working harder. It's about doing stuff that makes you better. And usually that stuff isn't the run and gun. Like, I'm not saying run and gun, since that's a whole pitching thing. What I'm saying is it's not the max deadlift. It's a max deadlift is just an expression. We talked about that last week. It's just an expression of what all the one of my favorite coaches, he's called it master of the mundane.
Yep.
And it's literally just every day, show up on time, every day, warm up with intent, exercise with intent every single day. And that is what builds consistency. That's what builds success, is being able to do that. And the more consistent you are, the more ability you have to just keep going and keep doing the exact same thing every day. Because if you can track it, if something happens good, if something good happens and you've been tracking it, then you have metrics on to understand what you're actually doing to get better. And if something, if it's like, hey, what's wrong? Okay, I've tracked it. Now let's see what's going on. Then we can actually take things out that have decreased your performance to then help see an increase on the back end. And I think people get that mixed up, where it's just like, hey, bro, I'm going to do this and this and this and that and then this. I'm going to work out for 4 hours here, and then I'm going to go 6 hours in the sauna. And it's like, no, like, there's so much more things that if you just ate better, slept better, had a better training program, you're probably going to see and be consistent with everything. You're probably going to see pretty quick progress and upward trajectory. And
my term for this, 99% of our guys just need to step forward. And that's our term, right? Step forward. So what does that mean? What that means is that, oftentimes guys are at home and they're like, oh man, I was hanging out with my friends, and we hear this all the time. Like, it's soft. Like, oh, I was just hanging out with my friends and I just forgot to do it. Well, that tells me that you don't really care.
Yeah, you don't care. You just don't care.
You need to, if there's a message, how much do you care about this? If there's a reminder on your phone that says log your food and it pops up and you still push it aside, I'm sorry. Guess what? It doesn't mean that much to you.
Yeah.
If you push it aside, if you say it's not today, I'm too busy, or I just don't feel like I'm step forward, do it.
Yeah.
Step forward means go forward, move forward and do it. Just do it. Just get it in front, right? Just do it. Step forward. If you can just step forward every day, right, on something, the mundane, right? Focusing on the mundane. If you can just step forward at the end of the day, you're going to find, if you do that for 30 days straight, just challenge yourself 30 days straight. I'm going to step forward every day. I'm going to set a reminder. I'm going to make sure I track all my calories. I'm going to get all my workloads as close as I possibly can. I'm going to do all of my stuff this month, 30 days. I'm going to step forward for 30 days. Every day, I'm going to do the mundane. If you can do that, then you're able to leverage the team, which is fully maximizing your training. Then we can have fun. Then it's the sexy stuff. The stuff you see on Instagram, that's the stuff we're programming. Because you've earned it, because you stepped forward. If you can't step forward, if you're constantly stepping back, I don't know. That's a little difficult, right? I don't know. I'm just busy right now. I got homework. Takes 5 minutes. It takes 5 minutes. That's all it takes. 5 minutes.
And you can be even more efficient with nutrition, at least.
Yeah.
And eat the same thing every day, like I do. I eat the exact same thing every day. So I know exactly how much calories I'm eating, how much protein I'm eating. And that's the thing. Like, for me, I'm a very routine person.
Yeah.
Like, tracking food for me, very easy.
Yeah.
But it's also very boring because I eat the exact same thing every single day.
So it's again though, and I like to bring this all back. Like, really, the question is like, what are recovery modalities? Like, what are recovery modalities, or what is the best strategy for recovery after an outing? Really, at the end of the day, if I had to sum all of this discussion up, it's step forward.
Yeah.
Right. That's the mantra you should take out of here. Step forward. If you want to know, if you're looking at a singular outing and you're wondering how to best recover after that outing, it's not a singular outing. It should be a plan that you had in place, outing over outing over outing over outing, week over week over week over week, that you've been building since the off season. The season is the fruit of your labor from the off season. If you put in that work, that time from the off season, at the end of the day, when you get into season and it's finally time to grind, it's finally time to go after it, all the flashy stuff shows up. Great. If you've built yourself master of the mundane, right? You've stepped forward week over week. Guess what? You're going to get into an opportunity where, yeah, hey, great. You know what? Let's maximize some of the small stuff, the little 1%. Not all this down here, the foundation, the 99%. That's all the stuff that guys don't like to do. That's the training stuff. But the 1%, the little extra stuff that you see on Instagram that you want to add, great. You got to earn that. And that's when you step forward. So if I had to say one thing, tell you guys, take home message tonight, step forward this week. I think we can close it on that.
Sweet.
Awesome. So that's episode 3 of episode 3. Yeah, that was episode 3. Episode 3 of KB Community. A lot more coming up in the next coming weeks. Shout out to our non-official sponsor, official sponsor, Fit Aid. What's your say?
I'm the
immunity aid. So I think it's just Aid.
Never get sick.
We should probably get the company name right if we're gonna try to sponsor
Fit Aid. I never get sick, but I have the immunity one. Just
Well,
saying, I don't get sick.
Anyways, moving on. To finish up tonight, you guys, if you have questions this week, make sure you reach out to us on support at KineticProBaseball.com on email. Make sure you guys are jumping into KOOP, KoOP.KineticProBaseball.com. That is our member site. Make sure you guys are checking that out, jumping in there and seeing all the updates this week. There's gonna be a lot rolling through. We got a ton of content planned. This community meeting is gonna get some overhaul in the next couple of weeks. Super fired up about that. We're going to bring on some guests, maybe do some cameos and make this maybe like a Sports Center broadcast. We'll see. Yeah, shout out Jimmy Herget for the all-season horn, the mouth horn. If you guys haven't ever seen Jimmy throw a bullpen, every time he hits the pad in our facility, he makes that noise. So he had a great season this year. Shout out Jimmy. But to close out, guys, awesome stuff from community as always. Garrett, appreciate you stepping in tonight. We will be bringing you guys new stuff here moving forward, so keep an eye on that. We'll be posting this on Instagram. If you guys have questions, support at KineticProBaseball.com. Other than that, step forward this week.
Yep.
Step forward. Later. See you guys.